I call to order the meeting of the Common Council for Tuesday, December 15th, 2020. Clerk?
All 12 are present, Your Honor.
We do have a quorum and we'll proceed. Please rise now for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation led by Alder Lynn Gerlach from the 3rd District. I pledge a flag of the
United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alder.
Folks, would you please be seated? Because this is not a prayer. This is going to be something else, and you don't need to stand. So I would really like to ask everyone to be seated. Okay? So this being our last meeting of this horrible year of 2020, with the pandemic still raging and the political polarization still keeping us in fraught times, we still remember a lot in our streets this past year. So I wanted to find a poem I could share with you that might give us some hope and some strength. And I found this poem by Miller Williams, who is a late poet from Arkansas. It's called Of History and Hope. Let me document to move here so I'll be able to. I'm having a little trouble, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Here. Just hold on a minute. There it is. I think I got it. Okay, we got it. Of History and Hope by Miller Williams. We have memorized America, how it was born and who we have been and where. In ceremonies and silence, we say the words, stories, singing the old songs. We like the places take us. Mostly we do. The great and all the anonymous dead are there. We know the sound of all the sounds we brought. The rich taste of it is on our tongues. See, and why, and who? The disenfranchised dead want to know. We mean to be the people we meant to be, to keep on going where we meant to go. But how do we fashion the future? Who can say how, except in the minds of those who will call it now? The children. The children. And how does our garden grow? With waving hands, oh, rarely in a row, and flowering faces and brambles that we can no longer allow. Who were many people coming together cannot become one people falling apart. Who dreamed for every child an even chance cannot let luck alone turn doorknobs or not. Whose law was never so much of the hand as the head cannot let chaos make its way to the heart. Who have seen learning struggle from teacher to child cannot let ignorance spread itself like rot. We know and what we have said and how we have grown degree by slow degree, believing ourselves toward all we have tried to become, just and compassionate, equal, able and free. All this in the hands of children, eyes already set on a land we can never visit. It isn't there yet. But looking through their eyes, we can see what our long gift to them may come to be. If we can truly remember, they will not forget.
Thank you, Alder, for sharing those words with us. On to approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Lefebvre to approve the minutes from the December 1st, 2020 meeting. Any corrections that need to be made here? Seeing no requests, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes have been approved. Approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stoyer to approve the agenda. Any changes? Seeing no requests, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The agenda has been approved. Report by the mayor. We do have the 2021 committee and council schedule that's been emailed out to all alders. really just wanted to note the change that's been suggested by a handful of you, which is to sort of eliminate that summer schedule that the city has had for a number of years. I heard your concerns and responded to them. The compromise that I've offered up to council is really, maintaining that normal schedule with the exception of middle of summer, having a little bit of a break there in July so that staff can take some time away from the city and enjoy some well-needed rest. So with that exception and with some changes around the elections to accommodate the responsibilities of the clerk's office, we'll be having more of a normal meeting schedule in 2021. So just wanted to note that for all of you and for those super citizens who pay attention to these sorts of things. Also wanted to touch on something that's on the agenda tonight and something that is not. What's not on the agenda, as a number of folks have probably noticed, is an extension of our state of emergency here in the city of Green Bay. I just want everybody to know that in my view, we still have a very serious public health crisis and emergency in the city and state and country. The reason that I'm not seeking an extension of that proclamation or that declaration at the municipal level is because, I think we're going to be able to deal with these things pretty rapidly by convening a council meeting if necessary in 24 hours. I think we've demonstrated an ability to hold a number of special council meetings. With our ability to do things virtually, I think we have a lot of flexibility. So just want people to know that this is really a statement about, executive power and authorities working with legislative power and authorities as well, and feel like we can meet the needs of the citizens under the regular order of business. So that's why I have not things. But to reinforce the point that I think a strong majority of citizens would agree that we still face some significant public health challenges, I am requesting an extension requirement that is also falling away at the end of the year. I am seeking an extension of that. I think it sends a really important rhetorical message to our community that this is a simple, really easy thing to do, almost literally the least that we can do to keep one another safe is by wearing whenever possible when we're congregating with other folks. So that obviously is before you tonight, and I'm seeking council approval of that extension. Also wanted to touch on the safety plan that's before you, that is being supported by our chief and our police department. That includes, of course, the implementation of a body camera program here in the city of Green Bay for our officers. It's certainly not the end all be all with regard to public safety or policing, but I think this is a really, really important step forward for us. I know some folks might have concerns with the way it's being financed, and certainly in an ideal world, we'd be able to incorporate this expense immediately into our operational budget. That's certainly the long-term goal for me, hoping that it's not all that long-term, to be honest with you. But again, I think this is a very important step forward. As the chief has said, the timing is really right with this, given the strong support that we're seeing from the Green Bay Packers and some of that, some of those questions that have been answered at the legislative level with regard to records retention. I strongly believe it's time for us to move forward and would ask for council support on that item as well. Finally, obviously, we're moving into the holiday season, a little bit different than how we've experienced things in the past, obviously, but wanted to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to council and our bill. With that, I will conclude my report and move on to announcements from council. Alder Scannell.
Yes. Is that me?
Yeah.
I'd just like to mention a few things.
If you want to just hold for a second, Alder, would just encourage all people tuning in to mute their mics if you're not speaking. Alder Scannell, go ahead.
Okay. There is a app that local businesses, if you haven't heard about it, and list your goods there, and everyone in the community, if you're looking to shop locally, you can go to the Shop Here app and you can find local stores to do a search and find the goods you're looking for and get it right here. If you need to see a webinar for more information on it, you can go to Downtown Inc. They've got a link for that. Also, we should social distance, but we should get out and we should see this display. There's quite a display on our city deck. Come on down and take a look. And while you're down there, both downtown and Old Main are going to be decorating the storefronts. They got a contest, so if you have an establishment in those areas and you haven't signed into the contest, get her going, and let's all take a walk and down our city deck and then see what our storefronts look like. So come on downtown. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Alder. I would second those, especially those first comments. I've used the app a couple times. It's pretty slick, so would encourage others to do the same. Alder Lefebvre.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I approve of the lifting the emergency thing. I think, there's a time and a place for everything, and we were in a learning situation, and I think we're finding out how we can handle some of this stuff, and I do believe in the masks. I have asthma, but I wear my mask because I don't want to give it to anybody else, and I also don't want to get it for myself. But it's just common courtesy, and I believe that we should show respect for everybody. And also, I have been going downtown and at some of the small shops, but I make sure that there aren't a lot of people in the shop, and I wear my mask, and I wash my hands. I use the hand stuff afterwards. I'm very careful, and I think others can do that. But the small businesses do need our business, and if you don't, you can call, because so many of them will do pickup. And I've even had, at the museum, I've had somebody deliver right to my house some of these stuff. So I think it's that we do have to support our small businesses because they are very much in trouble. Thank you. And Merry Christmas to everybody.
Sorry about that. Alder Galvin, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't usually do announcements, but so many of my constituents and others have been so impressed with the holiday light display that the park department has put up in St. James Park. From what I understand, it's going to be rotating. So, I mean, eventually all of you will have the privilege of having this beautiful display in your parks in Christmases to come. But I encourage people to come down and take a look. It really is a neat display. It's beautiful. My granddaughter just loved it. And seeing all the people, neighbors and people that aren't neighbors, pulling up and walking through and taking pictures and enjoying the scenery was very nice. Also, the park department did a beautiful job honoring our healthcare workers at Baird Park, where they put up a beautiful blue light display on the walkway that most of the employees take to their parking areas where they park their cars. And it's really a good tribute to them. It covers the employees from the two hospitals there. And I think it's a really nice job for these people. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well said, Alder. Alder Weary.
There we go. My apologies. I think that was my communication error before, not Alder Scannell. So I had to switch to my phone from my computer.
No problem.
I just wanted to thank first the Open Green Bay area. They held an event this weekend. You can check out their Facebook page. It's Open Green Bay Area Schools. Brooke Blodgett Andrews and Melissa Stitz mainly for holding that. And I fully support their efforts. I'm hoping the Green Bay School Board needs to, stop dragging their feet and get our kids back to school. I have a son who goes to West, and we need to find a way to get this done. So other than that, just Merry Christmas.
So, any other announcements?
Mayor?
Alder Steuer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Also, I'd like to wish council and citizens of Green Bay a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, and all that good stuff. I'd like to give a shout out to Elmore School in my district. The parents and the principal there are doing a phenomenal job of reaching out to the immediate community and helping with needs that they have. And believe me, there are a lot of needs in the community. And I think, as we look at our schools, our churches, our neighborhood, Salvation Army, wherever we can help, even a little bit, every little bit helps. And I think it's important that, we are very thankful. I'm very thankful to live in a country that I'm free in and doing okay. And a lot of people aren't. And I just would hope that we could reach out to people that do need help in this time. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Any others?
Mayor, Alderman Burnett.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to wish my colleagues and the public here a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We've dealt with a lot of issues in our community and our country, a lot of issues that perhaps the city council has never had to deal with. I think at times we've kind of got each other a little bit. It's difficult making some of these decisions at a time where the community seems very conflicted. So I wish you all very, very well in this coming year. One thing if 2020 has taught us is the need of community. We got to stick together. We can't let petty differences tear us apart as a country and as a community. And also, we need to connect back to civic life. It's very nice, although we've dealt with a lot of really controversial issues, it's nice to see more and more people attend our city council meetings, perhaps by Zoom, I know. But as we enter into the new year and can meet in person again, I encourage the public to continue to fill up our city council chambers because civic life is very important. We know that now more than ever. I want to thank our neighborhood associations. I was able to participate in the Green Bay Neighborhoods meeting, Green Bay Neighborhood Leadership Council, also known as, a couple weeks back. It's hard to keep neighborhood associations going in normal times, let alone under difficult times like this. But I'm very encouraged to see the collaboration within our neighborhoods and very dedicated people to keep this thing going. So specific to my district, a constituent was elected chairperson of the Green Bay neighborhoods. So congratulations to Sarah Luchow. Vice Chairman Jim Ritterbush, I know many of you know Jim. Congratulations to him and all the other leaders. Finally, and usually I don't speak so long at announcements, but just keep the small businesses in mind, and not just small businesses, but also thrift stores and restaurants. And if you're doing holiday shopping, perhaps a gift card to one of our small businesses, or have a family dinner, you go to one of these small businesses. Not that big chain stores are not important, because they are. But when I do some Walmart is full, Target's full, Meijer's full. Unfortunately, not all of our small businesses are. And we know how important small businesses are to this community and those they employ and the people who own those businesses. So it goes without saying, but just please, if you're going to do a little holiday shopping, don't forget the small businesses and thrift stores. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Very good.
I'll say amen to that.
Thanks, Alder. All right, we will move along to recognitions and awards. We do have a recognition here tonight, recognizing the police department maintenance and motor shop crews who have worked incredibly hard during this pandemic to make sure that all our vehicles are functioning and that they are clean and safe for our officers to occupy. And I know Chief Smith is obviously on the call tonight. He would like to recognize those employees, as well as a special recognition for Dean Simon, a lead mechanic over at PD who is retiring after 30 years of service. So with that, I will turn things over to Chief Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council members. This is a copy of the proclamation. It's signed by myself, of course, by the mayor, by Alderman and President of the Council, Jesse Burnett, and by Kim Wade from Chris Teskey's office of the city clerk. And basically, what I hope to let everybody know is that we as a police department knew that when this COVID hit back in February and March, we knew we could not shut down the police department. We know we still had to be there to answer those calls. We also knew that this COVID virus was very contagious and very easily transmitted. And we knew that with as many people, 180 officers working in this building, we needed to keep the building clean and we needed to keep our cars clean. So the gentleman you see seated behind me, you see on the screen there, that is the maintenance crew and the motor crew. And these are the guys who changed their shifts, changed their schedule, changed their hours of work so they could cover it around the clock. They kept our station pristine. They from, cutting the grass and moving stuff and painting stuff and fixing stuff to keeping the station clean. That was their goal, and keeping everything sanitized. The guys work in the motor shop, they stopped building cars and they concentrated on getting all our police cars clean. So every cop that got into a car at the beginning of their shift had a car that had been completely sanitized. And because of that, I'm convinced we were able to, in the first 6 months of this COVID, only have probably 3 people infected, while we saw these infections raised all across the country. I got an example of it, of the proclamation here. I'm happy to read it. Certainly don't want to read 8 of them to you, but if I could, if you'd indulge me, I'll introduce the crew that we have here. And let's start in the very far corner. That is Kevin Francis. He's one of our maintenance crew. His dad, Ted, is next to him. Next to him is Gary El Chaleco McDermott. He's our lead maintenance guy. And Rick Turkanis is on the end. He's our business manager. In the front row here, we have Todd Booth on your far right. And next to him, James, the very famous James Spelkout. James. Next to him is Dean Simon. And Dean Simon is retiring this week after 30 years. He's our lead mechanic, 4-person. Work these guys did. And finally to him, Marty, of course, who I owe big favors from way back when, before I even started working here. So these are the crew that did it. These are the crew that changed their shifts. These are the crew that kept our officers healthy so they could get out and they could take care of the city. So I just, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank them and recognize the great work that they've done.
Absolutely. Very well said, Chief. Thank you so much, guys, for everything you've done on behalf of the city and our police. Appreciate it. On to appointments.
Approve.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stevens, to confirm the appointment of Pam Manley as emergency interim successor to the office of clerk effective December 15, 2020.
You got any place in mind, or?
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that appointment has been approved. On to reappointments. Motion by Alder Scannell. Was that seconded by Alder Weary? No? Just make another noise?
I'll second if he doesn't.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stoyer, to confirm the reappointment of Adam Kirsten to the Military Avenue Business Association. In there. Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that reappointment has been approved.
Mayor, point of order, Mayor. I'm taking a step back to item number 1 with the appointment of Pam Manley. Because of that appointment being required by state statute, does that require a roll call vote?
That is a good question. Attorney Bunger.
I don't believe so. As far as the matter of voting, it's up to parliamentary procedure of the body. So as long as the body is okay with proceeding with roll call vote, there isn't a requirement in the state statute that provides it has to be roll call. So
Okay.
voice vote
I just wanted to verify so we didn't get in trouble.
Yep.
Nope, that should be fine.
Very well. All right. Thanks, Attorney Bunger. Thanks, Alder. On to the report of the Finance Committee.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf, to approve report K, which is the report of the Finance Committee from the meeting on December 8, 2020. Any items here to be handled separately?
Item 1.
Any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The report has been approved with the exception of item 1.
Motion to
wishes.
approve.
Second.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf to approve item 1. The item was pulled by Alder Dorf. You have the floor.
Thank you. So while the item, it says to advance to council with no recommendation, the request to approve, et cetera, I would like to clarify that a little bit. I'm the chair of finance, and we had a very robust discussion about this, and I did not get the impression that anyone was opposed to the officers and the cameras. The concern had been financing it and waiting to see with two of the alders what the amount would be from the Packers. And of course, they were extraordinarily generous. I am so grateful to them for what they have offered to us. So there were 2 alders voted to move it forward, approve it, and 2 others did not. And that means it moves forward with no recommendation. So I wanted to explain what that meant. And we will have a good discussion about this here. I myself am very much in favor of this. I think a lot of groundwork was done by both Calvin Winter, who is our procurement manager, by the police department, by the people that they worked with, by the Axon people. They gave if you recall, at council last month, earlier this month, we had that presentation about what the body cameras were going to be like. So we really have talked about this already. Not really talked about it, but we've seen it. Now we're talking about implementing it, finding the funding for it. And I'm just going to say right now that I'm very much in favor of these cameras moving forward. As we talk a little bit, there may be people from the public, some have contacted me about possibly wanting to speak. I'm not sure right now if we need to open the floor. Maybe we'll have some alders speak first, but I may ask to open the floor in a little while. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alder. Just a reminder to press your buttons if you'd like to speak on the item in particular.
Mayor, I'd like to speak on that.
Alder Vanderleest, go ahead.
Can we discuss the amount that the Packers is going to endorse as far as the amount towards the body cameras?
Yes.
Do we know that amount? Do we know that amount?
We do. It was included in your packet that was distributed, but I will turn things over to Director Ellenbecker. I'll walk those dollar amounts, or walk that through for you.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, if you were to look at your packet, at least online, on page 13 of the packet, on that page, there's a summary, and in the section that says total savings offered, the very bottom line, it says the Packers contribution is $757,389. And so then you go to the second column, our first pass, the total package that the city was asked to pay for in 5 years was $2.7 million. With the Packers contribution, that brings it down. The city's overall cost in the 5 years was $1,950,448.50. What that does, it takes out most of the cost of year 1 and reduces year 2 costs for. And again, remember, this is for body cameras, this is for tasers, this is for software, this is for car cams, and a lot more other. This is one complete package, so it's more than just body cameras.
Can I ask where the rest of the money is going to come from? What is the financing tool to get this done? Where are we getting the money from?
Yeah, in year 1, we're only the city only is on the has to put out $21,600, and that is already in the 21 budget. We had already budgeted $21,000 for the taser program, so that will already be in the budget. And then in year 2, we will either have to try to put money in the operating budget, or we will have to go bonding for year 2 through 5. And so we tried to ramp up the expense so that We're hoping to, again, try to start putting some money into our operating budget to cover this comprehensive package and we're getting a lot more new software and equipment in this package compared to what we already have.
In year 2 through 5, is there any finance that's going to be coming due that we can be able to, offset these costs as far as bonds coming due or less payout as far as our debt obligation?
Yes, every year we have some debt that comes due and it, that gets paid off in like 2020. 2021 we'll have some debt that is paid off. So every year we have some that gets paid off and typically every year we take out some new debt.
In other words, can we incorporate it without having a tax increase for 2022? Is that possible?
We can certainly take a look at it, but that's 2 years out to be able to tell you what debt would come off the books and what we'd be adding. We could certainly do analysis, but that would be a year or two out. That information is not available at this time.
Okay, thanks. All I have questions for. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Galvin?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a question for Director Ellenbecker. At our last finance meeting, it was discussed, finance and personnel. There was discussion about the city's contract for crossing guards. And we were made aware that the things of the crossing guards, because we have a very small percentage working this year, that we're looking at a savings of over $400,000. And I'm wondering if budgeted money could be set aside to pay off some of our debt moving forward, say into the second year and beyond if possible. I'm not sure how far it would stretch. I don't recall what our debt requirement is for that second year of the contract.
What I can tell you about the crossing guards, the 2021 budget is $431,000 for the crossing guards. So, early in the year, if we're not using the crossing guards because the school is not in session, we would certainly have some savings, but I would expect at some point we're going to be using those crossing guards. Your question is it's an operational expense. It's a 2021 budget. We wouldn't be able to carry over or hold any money for a 2022 budget for a 2021 expense because these are operating expenses.
Okay, and I apologize. So we budgeted money for crossing guards for 2021 or 2020. Aren't we saving money in 2020 on crossing guards?
Well, 2021, yeah, correct. We budgeted $392,000 for the crossing guards because they are our staff. Yes, and we haven't paid out the employees. Correct. There is savings in 2020.
Okay. Can that money be set aside to be used to offset some of the costs of this program?
We would not be able to set aside 2020 operating money for a 2021 or 2022 purchase. If there was to be a surplus at the end of 2020, the council does have the option at the end of 2020 to designate what that surplus would go toward. We typically or would prefer to have it go right down to the fund balance, to the bottom line, to increase our fund balance. But the council does have the authority to, if there is a surplus, how they would want to designate it. At that point, they would have the option to try to set some of that money aside if there is a surplus at the end of 2020.
Okay, and so the same thing that applies to 2021. We can only use monies budgeted for that year. And I anticipate schools are going to be starting at some point, but I imagine there might be some savings there, but that can only be applied to items in 2021. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate the information.
Yes.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I was one of those individuals at the committee level that wanted to vote for no recommendation. I wanted to explain that. And it was predominantly because we weren't aware of what the Packers' contribution was going to be at that time. And I didn't think it was appropriate for me, at least, to cast a vote in support of something for which I didn't have the full picture in terms of how much it was ultimately going to cost. And so recognizing the generous contribution that the Packers are willing to step up with on this, it certainly helps alleviate, I think, a number of the questions that a few of us had. In fact, I think everyone at the committee had. And then, of course, two of us who supported the no recommendation, I think just wanted maybe a little bit more assurance on that front, which we received. The one major concern that I did have at the committee level, though, was the financing. I have yet to stumble across an alder through public statements, through it's made at the committee, that opposes the concept of body cams. And I think there might be some different pieces, and as other alders have an opportunity to speak, there might be some additional questions and pieces that they look to and answers that they want to have tonight. But I think inherently there seems to be some general and broad support for the body cameras. But it's not enough, unfortunately. We still have to know how we're going to pay for those things. And I think that's at the heart of some of the conversation that occurred at Finance Committee. For me, one of the concerns that I expressed at Finance Committee was recognizing that our budget is in a very precarious situation. It's very tight from year to year right now. There's some light at the end of the tunnel on that, but a few years down the road. So I think the Packers contribution really helps create some bandwidth opportunities for us in that first year, and recognizing that $21,000 balance for year one in the contract can be taken out of the police budget on the taser line. I think is a big bump forward as well. The other piece is related then to bonding. We have the ability to bond this if we can incorporate that into our annual budget. And I just want to make a comment about that because I do think it is important that we find a way for us to absorb this into our annual operating budget. We're looking at approximately $400,000 a year for us to keep this program. The way that math works, for those who haven't looked at the paperwork, this is a 7-year contract, but it comes in payments over 5 years. So if you average looking at about $400,000 a year with different payments in different years. The problem with bonding is that typically you're going to pull bonds for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. That would be up to the recommendation of staff and just when that comes up. But my fear is if you start bonding for something that is an annual expense, you will never retire the debt. And so for that reason, I think it's very important that we absorb this into our annual operating budget. I initially considered an amendment putting a contingency on this that there not be any bonding, but I'm going to withhold from doing that because I don't like the idea of handcuffing the council or the mayor's office in proposing future budgets. But I also wanted to at least take the opportunity of saying that as future bond requests come before council, that is something that I'm going to watch very closely because I think it's important that we find a way to make this an annual operating expense. And then the last thing, and I don't know this for sure, Mayor, but is there an actual motion on the floor?
Yes.
Did Alderdorf make a motion?
She did, yep.
Okay. I mean, the one thing that I would maybe offer up as an amendment, if Alderdorf wants to just accept it, she can do that, but that we add a contingency the contingency based on receipt of the Packers contribution. I think it's important. I didn't see a letter of commitment or anything along those lines in the packet. So I think it's just important that we do have that additional protection within the purchase. So I guess
I did not make the motion. I think Alder Scannell made the motion. I seconded that motion.
Okay. So I guess it would be up to Alder Scannell then if he'd be willing to accept that contingency.
Certainly, not a problem.
Okay. So Alder Johnson makes a motion to amend that would make this item contingent on the receipt of the contribution from the Green Bay Packers. That's been seconded by Alder Scannell. Discussion on that amendment? Seeing none, all in favor will signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay?
Mayor?
Yeah, Director.
Yes, I want to clarify or kind of understand where Alder Johnson was thinking that this is a 7-year contract. It is a 5-year contract and is to be paid over 5 years. I guess maybe you can help me understand why you think it's a 7-year contract.
Wasn't that the conversation we had at Finance Committee, that the equipment lifespan on this was 7 years and that the service being provided in terms of data storage lasted for 7 years?
As chair of finance, I recall 5. We talked about 5 years. I remember you said 7 one time, and it it was corrected to 5, but I thought it was 5.
Okay, I'll look back over the documents while other people are speaking. If I've got a misunderstanding on that, the only difference that makes in the dialogue then is that instead of looking at a $400,000 a year expense, it's more. Just kind of keep that in mind. That's the only relevance of the 7-year was on that calculation, and I'll take a look at where that misunderstanding came from.
Okay, so we do have that amendment and a second on the floor. Saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Alder Brunette.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Regarding body cameras, I'm in favor of body cameras. I think it's important to get the squad cameras. Also, the taser, which would be a means of interacting with people. The question I had at committee, of course, was the Packers contribution. Not a member of that committee, but I spoke, and I was a little concerned about not knowing the total. One other thing, though, that I questioned at the committee, and I question now, is just understanding the process of bidding. Because typically we go for, we do an RFP, request for proposal. At the committee level, Mr. Winters indicated that we're part, or we are in coordination with Sourcewell, and in the, as per my request, the Sourcewell document was included in the agenda pack. So if Mr. Winters could explain who Sourcewell is, what our connection is, and that in fact they went through this process properly.
Sure. Sourcewell is a national group purchasing consortium that we are members of. It's available for nonprofit organizations, municipalities, state governments, and it's on a nationwide level. They conducted this RFP. It wasn't just for body cameras, it was for multiple items for public safety officers. They conducted this RFP in accordance with the state of Minnesota's procurement laws, which are the most stringent in the country. So by doing that, they meet and exceed all of our procurement laws. So they conducted this. I included all the information, including the evaluation criteria, the public posting documentation. It included all of the vendors who submitted proposals. Sourcewell, in this case, awarded 4 different contracts off of this RFP. That information was also in there as well. So yes, they did the competitive process for us. We are piggybacking off of their contract, which is a standard procedure that we do it. We do it with Sourcewell. We do it with another consortium called NJPA. We do it with state contracts. So this is well within our policies and is a very common practice for municipalities to do it this way.
So if Axon is the preferred vendor for this sort of situation, do you believe it may create a non-competitive situation where, municipality after municipality will continue to go with Axon and perhaps limit competition, which over time will keep prices down?
I apologize. You broke up there. My internet may not be working the best. Could you repeat that?
Yeah. So, Axon is the preferred Sourcewell, but over time, if they're the preferred vendor for all these organizations that are part of Sourcewell, don't you think it would create a uncompetitive or non-situation where other vendors, prices inflated, whereas competition typically drives prices down?
No, so Sourcewell will conduct this. I believe this contract was a 5-year agreement. So this contract will be up and Sourcewell would go out for a new RFP. So similar to what we would do, we would be conducting a similar contract. We may do an RFP for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. Sourcewell is going to do the same thing. They're going to go out and they're going to rebid this in 5 years' time once that contract is up. So that is what is keeping the nature to be competitive.
So thank you for that. I guess, and I reviewed the document, Kelvin. One thing that I noticed was that the date on this was in 2019, November 2019, this was released for bid. it was sent or distributed, I guess you would just say, to 80 companies that could bid on the contract. 23 of those 80 submitted a proposal. And then of the 23, this particular group within vetted, I guess you would say, only, I don't know what it was. I had it here, but it was only a handful of companies. So I guess my question is, we're about a year from when that originally happened. A lot has changed in regards to policing and the need for body cameras. Perhaps there's been other vendors who have stepped up their game to meet this need of municipalities. So, your professional opinion, I know that this falls within our professional guidelines. Do you think it would be appropriate for us to be a city that we initiate the RFP, that we look to local groups who may be willing to do this, or national groups? Like, I don't want to forego the process if it's a $2 million contract. It's a $2.7 million contract, but $2 million of that will be charged to the city of Green Bay.
Yeah, I personally do not believe in this case we would receive better pricing than we are going to receive on a national level. That is the idea behind these consortiums, is to pool the purchasing power across the nation. So in my professional opinion, for this particular product, I don't feel that we would be saving the city any money by doing the RFP process on our own, because not only are we not going to have that national level purchasing power, you're also going to be incurring time, staff time, for developing an RFP, for going through the RFP, for vetting it, for evaluating it, which, when you look at the people that would be evaluating it, that staff time does add up quickly, whereas this competitive process has already been done. So this would be I personally don't think it would create any savings for the city.
Okay, one last question, and I'm not trying to lead you. I'm just trying to, if I was a very cynical, negative person, which many of you might believe that I am, but I'm really not. I'm just trying to make this look okay to the public. If I was a very cynical member of the public, I would say, is this a no bid contract? I get Sourcewell, I get we're a consortium, I get all that. But basically, it seems like Sourcewell or Axon presented something to us last city council. Then it goes to committee. Then we're told that this is the preferred vendor. To me, it just seems like it's not a competitive bid. We are relying on this consortium. Like, how can you reason through that? How can we tell the public it was not a no bid contract? What are your thoughts on that?
Because the consortium did the competitive process for us. They conducted the RFP. So they did the competitive process for us, and we are simply piggybacking off of their contract. It's no different than if the state of Wisconsin does something, we use the state of Wisconsin contract for salt, for tires, for many different things, road paint. And so they did the competitive process. They went out and did the bid, and we are simply piggybacking off their contract. So there was a competitive process done here. And I would assure you, I review everything to make sure anytime we join any sort of consortium, any group, anytime we're looking at these, I review everything. I review everything that they did. I make sure they're following the correct laws and make sure that they're well within our guidelines.
Okay, and you're, Calvin, you're an honorable, very professional person. I'm not trying to question any of that. I'm just saying how this looks to the public. Talk me through it, which you did. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No other questions, Mayor. No other comments.
Thanks, Alder. Thanks, Mr. Winters. Appreciate that. Any other questions from council?
I'd like to move to open the floor at some point whenever you feel it's appropriate, if this is a good time.
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to move to open the floor.
Second that.
Motion to open the floor made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Brunette. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is open.
So we have Abigail Ringel. Ms. Ringel, please unmute yourself. And you can state your name and address for the committee, for the council, and then I will get the timer started. Thank you.
My name is Abigail Ringel. The address is 2042 Memorial Drive in Green Bay, 54303. And I'm very heartened to hear that it seems like there's support for the body cams. My concern here is that it seems the council is more concerned with how they're going to be paid for than whether or not they're actually needed. I think at this point, we really need to look at reallocating funding to this important thing. This is something that our community has been demanding. This is something that the ACLU supports, and taxpayers have long been on the hook for lots of militarized police equipment. And in my opinion, taxpayers would be at a similar situation for this oversight. And this oversight should be prioritized in order to gain public trust, encourage transparency, and provide for additional police accountability, which is really what we've all been out in the streets and asking for this entire summer. So I would really encourage you to reallocate some funding from the existing police budget and make sure that this happens sooner and not delay this any longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ringel. Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the council. Ms. Delvaux, please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the council.
My name is Kelly Delvaux and Team Chapelview in Green Bay. I would like to echo a lot of the sentiments that Ms. Ringel presented. I think my biggest concern moving forward is the timeline for which this would be implemented. And also, will there be any discussion around regulations with the body cams? Must they always be on? How accessible and how long are things stored? And I'm just wondering if that's something that will be shared with the public as it goes forward. But I do feel that, you know, in light of having all new riot gear, tactical gear that was purchased this summer, and I understand some of it was through grants, this needs to be a priority. This is something that protects not only the citizens, but also the police who are serving. And so I'm really hoping that this can move forward as quickly as possible and that it stays transparent with these cameras are on at all times from the time your shift starts till it ends. So I appreciate that this is being brought to the forefront and being addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Delvaux. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the council, or raise your hand in Zoom. Louise, please unmute yourself, state your name, your first name and last name, and give your address for the council.
My name is Louise Padron, Padron. Address is 1416 Hobart Drive, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54304. As some of you may or may not know, that part of town overlaps with the Oneida Reservation, of which I'm also a citizen. And I just wanted to kind of reflect again on what Abby and Kelly had said. You know, I was fortunate enough to sit in a meeting with Chief Smith not too long ago, a couple months ago. And what we talked about, among other things, was really building trust in our community, building bridges, and the topic of personal accountability coming from all angles. And it sounds like the Green Bay Police Department is in favor of this, from my understanding. And I think that it's up to the council to hold them to those words and to find any means necessary to provide these body cameras along with other equipment to hold officers accountable, but more so to act as preventative measures to incidents of police violence in our communities. And I think, you know, like I said, it has to come from both angles. But anything that we can do to increase trust in our community, and which will eventually provide better quality of life for our citizens, which we all deserve, regardless of what part of town you live in. So I just wanted to share those words, and I hope that they'll be considered when the decision is made, and I hope that the money can be found for this equipment sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Padron, right? That's your last name?
P as in Peter, A, D as in David, R-O-N.
Thank you so much, Ms. Padron. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this issue? Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the council, or raise your hand in Zoom. Anyone else who'd like to speak? All right, thank you, Mayor.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion to close the floor made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorff. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. Did want to go to Chief Smith, just to see if he had any comments based on what's been said by the public or by alders. So Chief Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple things. One is that we are committed to transparency. I think there's a lot of support within the department for these body cameras. I think it will make us a better police department and a more transparent police department. To address some of the concerns, one is that will we have a policy that has to be on? We're looking at different model policies from the Chiefs of Police Association to our model policy, the company that we model our policies off of across the country. Many agencies, including Appleton and Oshkosh and Chicago and LA, have body camera policies. So we're going to pick the best of those, and we're going to implement that so that these cameras are on all the time. There will be consequences for officers who don't put their cameras on when they're supposed to be on. And that's one of the reasons why we're going with Axon, is because we believe the technology that Axon has is the most comprehensive and the most reliable. Because what we don't want is somebody to say, hey, your camera wasn't working, and have the public go, we don't believe you, we think your camera was working, you just shut it off. We don't want that to happen. So to answer some of Alder Burnett's concerns, we did not just go with Sourcewell and say, hey, they picked Axon, we like Axon, let's go with it. We did an extensive search years ago, and then we redid that search over the past maybe 6 or 8 months about different body cameras, and we narrowed emailed those 4 finalists to everybody, and really Axon is head and shoulders above all those. It's not the cheapest. The cheapest we would do is go buy a camera off the shelf, clip it to everybody's vest, and then figure out a way to download it and figure out a way to store it and hire other people to do the downloading and the storing and the tech support. But we think with Axon, we get the most comprehensive program, we get the best training, we get the most reliable system. So really for us, I think this is the best choice.
Thank you, Chief. We do have a few alders in the queue who have already spoken. So I just wanted to throw it out to those who have not spoken yet, if they are interested in asking any questions or making any comments.
Mayor, on our Alder Vanderleest, Mayor, on our agenda, it says a 7-year agreement on our agenda. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. I guess it is a 5-year agreement. Is that correct now?
Mm-hmm.
But on our computer here, it says a 7-year agreement. So you might want to change that if the 5 years is correct, then we better just change it to 5.
If I could clarify that, Mr.
Smith, go ahead.
The Officer Safety Plan 7+ is the name of the plan, but it is in fact a 5-year plan. So the name of the current plan that Axon has is the 7+, but it is for 5 years.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification, Chief. Others who have not spoken yet? Otherwise, we will go to Alder Galvin.
Your Honor, I just want to reiterate my support for the camera system. I think we need it. I think we needed it a long time ago. It's a budgetary item. I appreciate the people who have spoken tonight and voiced their concerns. I will tell you, as a member of the Finance Committee We have not approved the purchase of any riot or tactical gear for our police department, nor have we approved the purchase of any military equipment for our police department. And the policies and procedures were discussed at the Finance Committee meeting with us, alders asking on the committee questions of the police department, how far they've gotten into that policy and procedure and how they plan on moving forward with it to implement it. So I feel myself personally confident that the police department has always done a good job of holding its officers accountable, and that as it pertains to these cameras and the use of the tasers and our squad car cameras and the data that's stored and shared with the public on their request, I am very confident that they're going to follow all the rules and they're going to be very transparent about everything related to this moving forward. So I just wanted to put that out there, and because sometimes people get in their heads that maybe other departments do some of these things, buying riot and tactical gear and buying military gear, but that's not that's something the Green Bay Police Department has done, to my knowledge, ever. So thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Stoyer and then Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was going to mention that, and that safety plan 7+, that threw me off as well. So thank you, Chief, for clarifying that. I'm thankful for the Packers donation. The finance, I think, is the big issue here, financial. I think the fact that it's going to be $41,000 this year, or next year, I should say. And then the second year, maybe not as bad, but it might be another tough budget next year. I kind of agree with Alder Johnson that I'd like to try not to bond as much for some of this, because we pay off some debt, but then we incur more debt. So, and again, I mentioned at finance that somewhere down the line, we're gonna have to look at a new safety building or a refitted safety building for police and fire. That's gonna be coming down the pike. So we need to really keep that in mind as well. So generally I support this plan. I think 2 budget cycles, I think we're gonna have to look at this hard as far as how we finance it. I would like to see if we could do it other than bonding as much as we do. But I will definitely try to look at that and try to be part of the solution there. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we found the source of the misunderstanding on the 7-year term. If you go through this document, you'll find the number 7 no less than a bazillion times. So somehow that just kind of soaked in. But I wanted to at least respond to a couple of the comments from the gallery about the emphasis and focus on financing, because I think that's an important point. And I just at least wanted to explain my position that I've probably sort of just already leapfrogged to the conclusion that this is a necessity. And perhaps that's why I didn't talk about it as much. I think it's a ripe issue. I think the community recognizes that. I think the police department recognizes it's good for our officers. And obviously from a lot of the movements that have been going on this summer, I think that there is this collective feeling that right now it is absolutely an opportune time for us to make this commitment. And so I just kind of wanted to explain that. I mean, it's so oftentimes, at least when we have to make these holistic decisions, right, where we can sort of take step 1 is the commitment to do this. But even if we want to buy a box of pencils, we have to identify a funding source. And so that's always part of, I think, the collective conversation that we have around these types of things. And so I certainly don't want to convey that it's the most important piece of the dialogue. I'm going to highlight out, because I think some of the comments from other alders sort of alluded to this, but it's a little bit, unorthodox to hear from a vendor. And I think that might be what's prompted some of those questions about the process. But I've reviewed all the documents. I want to thank Mr. Calvin Winters for the Sourcewell documentation, and including that in the council packet is very robust and useful with helping to understand, how we got to this process. And I have absolutely no questions about this. I feel that it was that we came to a good conclusion in terms of the product that's being recommended, even if it was in a slightly unorthodox way. And then the last thing that I would touch on is that, normally when we make these purchases, again, we've already identified a funding source, right? It's going to come from contingency. It's already in the budget. We're going to bond for it. This is just a little bit different in that we are, and I do support that. And I've made my comments already in terms of a recommendation of how we in the future. And so we'll let that process unfold during future budget proposals and bond requests. But I just, again, wanted to reaffirm my commitment and support for this particular product, recognizing that we do have multiple options to pursue in terms of how we pay for this.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Brunette.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm in support of the motion. I'll be honest, I thought that the timing of everything might offend some people, but it seemed clumsy in a way. But I'm grateful to the Packers. I mean, we're one of 30 across the country that have an NFL team and an NFL team that's willing to really step up and financially support a community initiative, one that they push for, but second of all, is requesting. I also want to say, and Chief Smith has said this several times, different meetings and events I've participated in with him, in Green Bay, policing isn't something Green Bay does to the people, it's something Green Bay police do with the people. And the people are requesting this. I think sometimes one thing I'm a little uncomfortable with is it seems like we're kind of looking at it from just one perspective, that we need to make sure that the police are behaving themselves. On one hand, that is definitely correct, but also on the other hand, it protects the police, because a lot of times when these shootings have happened in other municipalities and other cities, including our own, unfortunately, the media will take 5 or 10 second clip and play it over and over and over again. And that sort of thing really tears up communities. So I think this is good for everyone involved. And so I'm grateful to the Packers. Wasn't entirely happy with the way that everything lined up, but yet I understand it, and I'm not gonna, question that anymore. Mr. Winters has assured us that the proper processes were in place and followed. Chief Smith has reassured us of that. The Finance Committee's on board with it. So I think it's a rather easy decision to put something that's very much needed in the city of Green Bay in a way that's very, financially doable for the next 4 or 5 years, with special thanks to the Green Bay Packers and their organization. So for me, it's a very easy decision. So thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Weary.
Alder Weary, I believe you're on mute.
I assumed everybody could read lips. I guess I'm wrong. No. Well, what I was going to say is I'm hopeful this is going to be one of those rare events where we get a unanimous vote, and it looks like it might be that way, especially for such an important item. I just wanted to thank the Packers, as everyone else is. They're such a great community partner, and we're very lucky to have them in the community. And so first start off with that. I had questions on the bids, and I saw all the emails and heard the discussion here today, and I'm comfortable with where we're at with that. I understand some of the questions surrounding it, but I think it's been vetted thoroughly by our staff and that outside group. I've also heard about the budget. I do think if we can work this into our annual operating, that would be beneficial instead of always trying to bond for everything. If we can make this is going to be an ongoing expense probably now forever. So let's try and get these things into our annual budget. And I want to make it clear, we're not cutting other police funding or taking resources away in any other cities that are going on around the country. We're not reallocating or taking funds away. We're actually giving them another tool, which brings me to the last part. Part of the purpose is, to keep, the police honest in all their dealings, which they mostly are, right? But it's also just as important to protect our officers from those 30-second video clips that you see in the news. So I think this is going to be beneficial for the community, and I look forward to voting yes on it. Thanks.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Scannell.
I think this item is picture perfect. And as always, now and forever, go Pack, go. And I don't believe there's been a motion to accept as amended, so I make that motion.
Motion to approve as amended made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf. Seeing no other requests to speak.
Mayor, could I request a board vote?
Yeah, absolutely. Roll call vote has been requested. We
Just waiting on Alder Weary, please.
I'm not having anything come through, but you can mark me as an aye.
And that item is approved 12-0 unanimously. On report of the redevelopment authority.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf to approve the report. We just have one item there. I believe we would probably like to go into closed session on that.
I'll pull item 1.
Okay. And your wishes on item 1?
To approve.
Motion made to approve, made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf. Somebody like to make the motion to go into close? I think my connection was lost there briefly. Can somebody make the motion to go into closed session and then read the language?
The council may convene in closed session pursuant to sections 19.85, subsection 1, subsection G, Wisconsin statutes, for purposes of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body whose advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. The council may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.85, subsection 2, Wisconsin statutes, to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
Right. Very well done. So we will use the board on going into closed session. You might want to mute yourselves if you're not speaking.
Just waiting on yours again, Alder Weary.
Yeah, mine's aye. Sorry, I'm not seeing anything pop across my screen here to vote on.
And that is 12-0 to go into closed session. So we are now closed. We'll wait a bit while Ms. Jeffries moves people to the waiting room.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mayor, I'm going to stop the recording. Just give me 1 second. And I'll text you when I'm ready.
Before we went in?
Attorney Bungert, I believe we need to make that motion in open. Is that right?
Yes. But yeah, I think there was a motion on the floor to approve the item.
Yes.
There was.
Yeah.
There was one? Okay, then we can vote on that in open. If that motion was already made and seconded in open prior to going into closed.
It was.
Oh, and we are, just so everyone knows, we are now recording. So.
Okay.
So now that we are open, we do have, I think slowly people are making their way back to the meeting here. So just 1 second. Everybody's in now. So we do have a motion on the floor to refer this item to staff. It has been made. It's been seconded. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That has been referred to staff. INS.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Scannell to approve Report M, which is the report of the Improvement and Services Committee from the meeting on on December 9, 2020. Any items under this report to handle separately? And all in favor of approving that report, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved. On to protection and policy.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stevens to approve Report N, which is the report of the Protection and Policy Committee from the meeting on December 7, 2020. Any items here to be handled separately? Hearing none, all in favor of approving that report?
Mayor, I'm sorry. I do believe number
yes.
one, yes, hold.
So we need to handle item 1 separately. Alder Stoyer,
Yes.
would you like to handle that item separately?
Number 1.
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay.
I mean,
Sounds good. We will do that. Any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 1.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve made by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Scannell. Attorney Bungert, can you speak to this briefly for us?
yes, thank you.
Yep. Yes, really quick. So our ordinance requires that a licensee applicant has proof of premise to be able to get a liquor license for establishment. Subsequent to this, to Protection and Policy's recommendation to approve the applicant, the clerk's office received information from the applicant that they are no longer moving forward with the lease, and so they have withdrawn their application. So accordingly, based on that indication to withdraw, the recommended mode would be to receive and place on file rather than to approve.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place on file made by Alder Stoyer, seconded by Alder Dorf. Any further discussion?
Do we know why, what happened there?
I think just negotiations stopped or failed between the building owner and the potential tenant and applicant.
Okay.
So I believe they're looking for another tenant.
Okay, thanks.
So we do have that motion to receive and place on file. It's been seconded. All by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That motion succeeds. On to granting operator licenses.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Lefebvre, to approve Report O, which is the report of the Protection and Policy Committee granting operator licenses. Any names you'd like to be recorded as abstaining? Any to handle separately?
Mayor, I'd like to abstain. Abby Steve Pack.
That is noted. Any others? And any to be handled separately? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of that report, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved, noting that abstention. Park Committee.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Corpus Dax to approve Report P, which is the report of the Park Committee from the meeting on December 9, 2020. Any items here to be handled separately? Hearing none, all in favor of approving that report, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved. Personnel.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf to approve report Q, which is the report of the Personnel Committee from the meeting on December 8, 2020. Any items here to be handled separately?
Item 3.
Any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 3.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf. The item was pulled by Alder Brunette.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Given the fact that schools are not in session currently and the fact that we've had one vendor, kind of back out of the contract, I'm curious if staff could respond as to whether or not we can just keep this under the police department for another year and then move forward with a new bid next year. Is Chief Smith or Commander Work? I don't know who would be most appropriate to answer that question.
Yeah, we could certainly go to either.
Alder Stevens, I wonder if the purchasing manager Winters would be the best to address that. I think he's still on the call.
I'm fine with that. Either or, yeah.
I'm still here. I can't necessarily comment on whether the police department can take that over, but I can certainly comment that I can explain the process that was used to move on from the first vendor to arrive at the vendor that is now being selected. The first vendor, the negotiations broke down with them. They were not aware that the crossing guards were being paid for hours beyond what they were actually working. And they did not want to pursue that any further without being able to increase the hours and the pay that the city would be paying them. The second vendor in the evaluations also, they were presented the same information, also said they would want to increase our prices, which we ended up at the third vendor, who then agreed that they would be able to provide the services at the rate that they had submitted in their RFP response.
Kelvin, Mr. Winters, does that happen often that we would go right down the line to the third preferred vendor?
So we did go to the second vendor, and they indicated that they would not be able to hold their pricing either with that information that was presented.
Oh, I know. I understand that. But what I'm saying is, we went from the chosen, then they, backed out. The second's not interested, and then we go to the third. At what point do we rebid this and maybe change the RFP language?
At that point, I mean, we're well within what our standard practice would be to go do it this way. You could change the language, but by changing the language, I believe we're going to arrive at the exact same outcome. I believe this vendor would likely rebid, bidding the same way, and the other two would rebid, and they would come in with that higher price that they were proposing.
Okay. Mayor, if Chief Smith or Commander Work could just kind of give a brief response from the perspective of the police department.
Yeah, Chief, go ahead.
I sure can. It would be difficult for us to take it back over. We certainly could in a pinch if we had to, but I think the fact that we've got an outside vendor that's willing to do it, I think is advantageous for all of us for a lot of different reasons, including liability, including the workers' compensation for anybody that gets injured. And it takes a big burden off the police department. And I think in the long run, it's going to do whatever the council really wants in the long run.
Chief, could you just respond to this? I had someone who is a crossing guard with the city, and this person commented that by having the crossing guards as police employees rather than contracted employees, that it brings a certain prestige to the position, like a level of respect and standing in the community and the school children. Could you respond to that? I mean, is that something you've considered?
I don't think anything is going to change for us with respect to the respect that they get. We certainly will support them as much as we can. I think one of the things that's happened, though, is for every 100 hours of pay that we gave people, they had about 30 hours that they didn't have to work and still got paid because of the old contract. I think that eliminated. So I think that's what one of the concerns is. We got a really good group of people that are really dedicated to protecting our kids. And I think most of them will continue to work and continue to do that. And as the police department, we're committed to support. We certainly still consider them to be part of the police department family, and we'll work with them to keep them safe and to support them as much as we can.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, there's no need to record me as a no necessarily, but I'm gonna vote no on a voice vote, just because I think it might be advantageous for us to put this out to bid since 2 companies backed out. So that's all. No other discussion for me.
Okay, thanks, Alder. Any other comments or questions? So with that, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That is received and placed on file. Resolutions.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion is made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Steuer to suspend the rules, take up these items with one roll call vote. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. You guys have it. The rules are suspended.
Motion to adopt.
Motion made by
Second.
Alder Scannell, seconded by
Second.
Alder Steuer to adopt resolutions 1 through 3. Any discussion? We will use the board.
Is there a problem, Mr. Mayor?
Sorry. Was that unanimous?
Yes.
Apologies, was having some glitches on my screen. Those resolutions are adopted 12-0. On to committee of the whole. We'll take these one by one. So we're on item 1, consideration with possible action on an appeal by Stacy Gerling regarding the denial of her public vehicle operator license. And I'm going to go to Attorney Bungert just so she can lay out the process for us.
Yes. So just a quick overview as to what parameters the council has to consider. Under state statutes, if someone is a convicted felon or a habitual law offender for offenses that substantially relate to a licensed activity, the council and or committee has discretion in determining whether those offenses substantially relate. Passage of time is one of those factors that can affect the determination. And further, since the denial is based on the applicant's or on the appellant's prior convictions, she has the opportunity to provide evidence of rehabilitation and fitness license activity. And if she so sufficiently provides that evidence through certificates of completion of probation, other diversion programs, references, and other documentation and records, council at that point cannot deny her based on those prior convictions. So staff recommendation at this point, based on her prior convictions, is to deny the appeal as she is a convicted felon and habitual law offender for offenses that substantially relate. And I will defer to Chief Smith or Commander Warwick as to their recommendation.
Very good. Chief or Commander?
Hi, Mayor. We followed the lead of the law and we support what the law's recommendation was on this, and that's what happened at the thing. So I know it's an extensive record. So we're kind of supporting the law's decision on this one.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
At this point, I believe the appellant is here. So we would need to do a motion to open the floor.
Motion open the floor.
Second.
Motion has been made to open the floor by Alder Stoyer, seconded by Alder Dorf. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor.
Hi, I'm Stacy Gerling. My address is 1980 Ridgeway Drive and De Pere, 54115. I do understand that I do have a record. It was a point in my life where a lot of things happened and I made some poor choices. Prior to that, my record was clean. I lived a very good life. Since my release from prison, I have done many, many things to rehabilitate, such as AODA, IOP. I was in relapse prevention. I have a certificate for finishing my relapse prevention. I also have my certificate of completion for rehab through Pathways, as well as recently I became a facilitator for in the Insight Group, which is a Christian-based rehabilitation program, kind of like a mutual support program. I was a sober, excuse me, a little nervous. I was a housing supervisor for sober living. I have been a big part of the community in advocating for substance abuse issues. I was accepted into Bellin as a recovery coach. I do have a certificate for that as well. So I've done a lot of things to change and to utilize my experience from those crimes and that time to help others. And so I don't know if I do have some supporters here with me. I don't know if they are able to talk to attest to my character and the things that I have done to rehabilitate and make sure that I'm healthy.
Yes, absolutely. So just ask that those participants state their name and address for us.
Okay. All right.
Hi, I'm Haley Weiss. My address is 1550 Marine Terrace, apartment 4, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54303. I am Stacy's friend and also her NA sponsor. I've known her for about 2 years and in recovery myself for a little bit shy of 2 years. In this time since I've known her, I have watched a beautiful person grow and grow. We actually lived in a sober living together, and that's how we met each other. We were roommates. And since then, she progressed through that program, obviously moved out, got on her feet herself. It was really beautiful to watch her do that. She then was the housing manager while I still lived there for a while, but she was the housing manager and she, moved on from that, but, she continues to want to progress and do better things with her life. As far as like the NA community, she's very involved. She does really well work with other people. And as far as her work on her own recovery, she's been doing a really good job, and we've been moving through a lot of different assignments that I put on her, and I'm kind of a go-getter when it comes to getting her stuff done. So, I'm really proud of her, and I think, if given this opportunity, she will do an amazing job and continue to do what's good for the community and herself.
Thank you for those comments. Any others?
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Stina Gerling. I live at 130 Main Apartment 327, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54303. I'm Stacy's mother. I'm in recovery myself, 12 years and 10 months. I have watched my daughter grow from a criminal to the person that I know she really is. She helps the community. She did a wonderful job running 3 houses, always finding the positive in the people that struggle, because this is such a horrible, horrible disease. And it's in our town so badly. We need people like my daughter who can help them grow and change their ways. And for her, that helps her to stay healthy herself. And she keeps an eye on herself, so she doesn't step back. And that's so important. So, and, I think she needs to be given this chance, because she's a really good with people. And she's a really fun person and a happy person. And given this opportunity, she'll, and that's all she needs. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Mark Johnson. Address 1980 Ridgeway Drive. I'm going to keep this short because I just wanted to say that I can also attest to what Stacy's mom and her friend Haley had said. I was actually in recovery, and Stacy's been a contributing factor in my recovery. She was my recovery coach. She's seen me along through the beginning stages of my recovery. She's done a good job keeping me accountable and making sure, I've had everything I need, the tools and resources, and she continues to do so, to this day. So I can attest for all that. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Travis Lambert, 1980 Ridgeway Drive, De Pere. And I've been with Stacy for 3 years, a little over 3 years now. And she's come a long way. And I do think she really deserves this opportunity. This is just a small stepping stone for her. And she's going to do great things for the community and just for people in need. And that's all I gotta say. I think she'll be really great, and you'll probably be seeing more of her in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, any others?
I believe Julie.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay.
My name is Julie Arnoldi, and I'm actually the manager over at Yellow Cab. I'm the one that spoke with Stacy at the beginning about doing this. With Yellow Cab, everything that we have is documented. We can pull a run up from 2-3 years ago. I would say probably 75 to 80% of the people that we have are people that are repetitive. So if there's anything which I'm sure we're not going to, we usually do catch things with drivers. I think she would be a great asset to Yellow Cab. We take a lot of people that are single or are stuck. So at times we work even, give us a call when there's a situation. We have 24-hour monitoring where we can see how fast a car is going. We can see where they're going. We are back-to-back runs, so there really isn't time for anything else. I mean, we have people in the car probably 90% of the time during the day. And I have 100% confidence in Stacy. And to be quite honest, there's probably situations where she's going to run into people that have questions, and she could probably still help, with dealing with the sober and stuff like that. We take all different kinds of clientele. We have a lot of contracted. So us at Yellow Cab, I can say that we're not worried that's going to happen with her, because I know she's been on the road to recovery for quite a long time. And I think she'd be an asset to Yellow Cab.
Thank you, ma'am. Any others?
Did you need my address? I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Okay, Julie Arnoldi, and I'm at 511 Clover Lane in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other testimony?
Close a second.
Wait, what if we have some questions for her?
Oh.
I'm not saying I do, but.
Right. Are there any questions on council for
I do.
Ms. Gerling? Yes, Alder Stevens, go ahead.
So, Stacy, when I'm reviewing your record, I didn't, and you can explain to me. So, what has happened in your life that has made you change lifestyle to become a better person?
Well, I actually didn't live that life. My mom recovery, and so I strived really hard to not fall into addiction, and I got a degree in criminal justice, bachelor's in business management, and I prospered in life. I unfortunately had a functioning addiction at first, pain pills from doctors. And then I got into a toxic relationship. And it was at that point I met other people that introduced me into harder drugs. And I was very broken at that point, and I kind of just gave up. And I did things that I would normally never do. I would never physically harm somebody, or, I recently, I found a credit card on the ground, and I looked for the lady to return it to her, and I was able to get it to her. These are things that, I normally wouldn't have done. And I was sick. And so, I chose recovery, and I continue to work on myself to make sure that, if I ever had to deal with a problem or a stressful situation, I didn't turn to drugs.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I greatly appreciate everything you've said.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Alder. Any other questions for Ms. Gerling from the council?
No. Mayor?
Alder Galvin, go ahead.
Your Honor. Ms. Gerling, congratulations on your recovery and this long process and journey that you've been involved in. When I was on protection and policy and being a retired police officer, I was always kind of a little bit more against people like you appealing for a release from the city to take on the job you want to. And one question I always want to ask people in your circumstances is, out of all the other types of jobs out there, is it possible you could look for a job which doesn't require you having to get permission from the city to get a license? I mean, and my understanding is there's a lot of good jobs out there. And I'm not saying this is not a good job, but a lot of jobs where you wouldn't have to go through the hoops that you're having to go through here. You're on, ma'am.
I feel, given my record and what I used to do, I really do have a hard time. I do want to continue to be in the recovery community. I was given an option to work with Yellow Cab, which was in which would allow me to save to do what I really want to do for the community, and that is open another sober living or treatment with another community member that's involved with recovery. So, I'm sure there is, but I was offered this position and I think I'd be good at it and it would allow me to do what I would like to do in the future.
Yeah, come on. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Johnson?
I'll reserve my comments for when the floor is closed.
Okay, very good. Alder Stoyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Stacy, thank you for coming forward. It's not easy to testify in front of a body at times like this. But the question I had was, considering the issues that you had, it sounds like you've turned the corner. Do you feel that your experiences will be a benefit to the community at large as far, well, you're going for your license, but you feel with what you've gone through that you'll be able to be a good teacher? And I think you've already mentioned that already. And it seems like you're working that way right now.
She's on mute.
Sorry, I was having. Yes, I do. I do feel like I would be a good teacher. Sorry. I run into people every day, wherever I go. Sometimes, I wear, my shirt says we do recover, and I represent that quite a bit. And people, open up to me, in the grocery store. And they come from all over and I'm always there to help. And I will definitely be a benefit. I feel I already have been a benefit to our community. I've done a lot of hard work on myself as well as with other people struggling in the community.
Well, I appreciate your efforts. Congratulations on that. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Alder. Any other questions for Ms. Gerling before we close the floor?
I have one last question.
Alder Scannell and then Alder Dorf.
Okay.
And this is for Julie. Do I understand this correctly that you sort of recruited Stacy? You offered her the job?
Yes. I actually met, I've known Stina, Stacy's mom, for many, many years. And I ran back into Stacy. My son has a bad problem with drugs, and we got him into the sober living where Stacy stayed. Unfortunately, my son didn't stay sober, so he is back in jail, but her efforts, her texting him, calling him and saying, you got to do the right thing. Big effort. And she was looking for a little bit of a difference to start a different home. And I brought up what I do for a living, and I wasn't sure if we could get her in or not. I was hoping, given the fact that she's done everything that she could to be a sober person, and she's been for a while, and the fact that we have so much security at Yellow Cab between the radios and the computer we use and the 24-hour dispatch, us being mapped. Everything we do is mapped out and documented. You can pull it up 2-3 years later. So we feel very safe in hiring her. We have a credit card scanner, so it only shows the last 4 numbers. I think she would be an asset to Yellow Cab because of the fact that some of the people that we deal with.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Alder Dorf?
I have a question for Stacy. Stacy, when was the last time that you actually were in jail?
Last time I was actually in jail, I was on a PO hold. And it was, it's a very long story about working with the sober living. There was allegations from my boss that had to be cleared, and they were cleared, every single one of them. It was a malicious attack, and I have many people that can attest to that. And I made it through it. And I can even provide all of the documentation. It was really a hard thing to go through, actually, because I was betrayed by someone that was supposed to be my sponsor and my friend. And I had seen the way she had worked with people, and I didn't like it. I actually have reported her to the Wisconsin Association Sober Housing because of.
When was that, Stacy?
That was at the end of October.
Of just this year, right?
Yes, but okay. I didn't commit a crime. I hadn't done anything.
Okay, so somehow you had to go to jail. Mm-hmm. Help me understand that. I'm not familiar with that.
I ended up going to jail, to make sure that I was also safe. I stayed in there for 7 days. My probation agent came, and we went through all of the allegations that were made by Mandy and cleared them out. I am now on a second round of Vivitrol, which is my drug of choice was opiates. Another round of that, so that way, no one can say that I'm using drugs, because you can use other drugs, but it's a safety net for me. It's a tool for me as well. So I did the remainder of my parole and probation, which is just over a year. And then I was released, and I started classes, Sabisa. We decided that would be good, and counseling, because what happened with Mandy was very difficult. And it's okay, Mom. But I hadn't done anything. I hadn't committed a crime. I hope that answers your question.
I thank you for being so forthcoming. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions before we close the floor? Entertain a motion?
Motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Vanderleest. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that we, sorry, just looking for the exact wording. I would move that we approve her public vehicle operator license, and I would speak to that if there's a second.
I second that.
Go ahead, Alder.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I think the first thing I want to say is, Stacy, Mark, Travis, Haley, Stacy's mom, which is not meant to be a reference to that Fountains of Wayne song. I apologize for that, but every single one of you should be commended for your commitment to recovery. Love yourself, and you guys are all going to get through this. And so thank you for choosing to be on that path. I actually come from a long line of addicts and ex-felons. And one of the things that I can tell you, it's a very fine line between individuals that for some reason, choose to go left versus those that go right. And I think to me, it feels here like we have an instance where an individual was attracted, towards the wrong end of that spectrum. And one of the greatest gifts I think you can give those individuals when they've made that commitment to recovery and they've shown progress is the gift of time. I mean, it's the gift of time to continue to separate themselves from that addiction, the gift of time to continue on that path of recovery, and the gift of time to kind of separate themselves from that prison term, because it is very, very, very difficult to secure stable employment when you have close proximity to a prison term. And I think the fact that she has showed up today, she has provided witnesses, she has provided tons of documentation to us, not only in the packet, but through our emails earlier today, and her employer, the person who probably has the most to lose in this, her employer came today and vouched for her, because if I owned a business, I would not put somebody in a position that could potentially risk the ongoing operation of my business. So it's for those reasons that I am going to support this, and I would urge the remainder of council to do the same.
Thanks, Alder. We do have a motion and a second. Other comments?
I just want to follow up on that too.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Alder Johnson said pretty much what I wanted to say, but very articulately. Like I said, our committee hears a lot of these issues and you can tell when a person is humble and real, and I feel that this is the case here as well. I think having all the support from the various friends, family, and employers is huge, and many times we ask for that, and it's hard to bare your soul in front of everybody on this, but that's part of the recovery too, I believe. So I think I commend you highly for that, and I totally support this. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Gerlach.
I think that Alder Johnson and Alder Sawyer have pretty much said what I wanted to say. I'm very impressed with the fact that this young woman could get 5 people to sit in her living room for 2 hours and wait for a chance to speak on her behalf. I don't know if I could get 5 people to do that for me. And I'm really thrilled that the employer, wants to help her do well and has come. I know this was hard for everyone. I just want to thank you all very much. I absolutely want to give this young woman a chance.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Stevens?
Oh, I'm good. I'm ready to vote. So
okay. Alder Galvin.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate everything that this young lady has gone through. And I've seen the results of people that have been successful in their recovery. But I am concerned about this incident in October. I see no paperwork on this that has been submitted and all the paperwork that we were given. I would like to put an amendment on this motion that the license be granted when she can bring in a letter from her probation agent backing up what she's told us about what happened this past October. And if she can bring that in, then I have no problem with her having the license issued.
I think we may want to open the floor.
Yeah.
We do have an amendment. Does it have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, we have an amendment and a second, and a motion to open the floor has been made by Alder Stevens.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Scannell. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is open.
I think Stacy has a letter.
She's on mute.
Sorry, I was looking for it. Unfortunately, it was just, I thought it was what I needed. It's a travel permit. I do have the statements and that we went through in my email, as well as my probation agent will be absolutely willing to provide necessary documentation. What exactly is it that you need? I was running around looking for.
All you're going to need is a letter from your probation agent attesting to the fact that the circumstances involving your incarceration this past October, that it was a false complaint, basically, that it was unfounded. And you wouldn't even have to appear before the council again. You would just, I think, what do we call it? Giving it to the proper authorities or upon approval of the proper authorities. So I think you would have to turn it into the clerk, and then the clerk would review the letter and put it in the file and issue the license.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Okay, Attorney Bungert, is that workable?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Motion to close the floor then.
Second.
Motion's been made to close the floor by Alder Dorf, seconded by Alder Stevens. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Floor is closed. Alder Galvin, you have an amendment and a second. Any discussion on Alder Galvin's amendment? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is successful.
Motion to approve is amended.
Second.
Motion made to approve as amended, made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any discussion on that?
Mr. Mayor?
Alder Lefebvre, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to say I missed the Personnel Committee. I could not be there, and so I didn't hear all the testimony, but from hearing it tonight, I would vote to approve her being allowed to get her driver's license, operator's license. And, you know, I know life can, some people take the wrong turn in their life. And when somebody tries to come back and do it the right thing, I think that we should always give them a second chance. And it's something too that if something happens, I'm sure she would also be pulled, her license would be pulled again. So I would definitely approve this. And as she had said that she would definitely give that letter from her parole officer, I think that has satisfied everything for me, and I will vote yes on this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alder Lefebvre.
I think there need to be a clarification.
Alder Stevens,
this did not come to P&P. This went straight to council.
Right.
Kathy.
That is correct.
Oh, it did? Oh, wasn't on. Okay.
Yep. Any other comments?
Just one, Your Honor.
Alder
Quick.
Scannell.
I just would like to make it clear that, you know, it's state statute that puts this in our position, that puts her in this position, that denied it, and staff is just following along with that. And fortunately, the language of the law allows us some wiggle room in that it says as it relates to, and usually we've, on protection of policy over time, we've kind of, there have been times we would deny, not because we felt we didn't want to, but we felt we had to uphold the law. We've taken an oath to uphold the law. But with this, the language that it is, we've developed over time that if there's enough time, that it's no longer relatable. And the time here is very short, but I think the way I'm looking at it is it's much longer than it is because of all she's done within it. That makes it much longer. So I think I feel very comfortable in upholding my oath and still being able to grant her appeal. So I just wanted to make that technicality clear of why we're here with the state law and how we can work with it.
Yeah, appreciate that clarification. And would just also note for those that are tuning in, as Alder Scannell said, normally these are handled at the committee level, but because of the timeline and the time crunch that we were under here in granting the license, we did take it up here before the full council, before the committee of the whole. So with that, we do have a motion and a second. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That motion is successful. I want to thank Ms. Gerling and her friends and family for being here with us tonight. Appreciate that. On to item T2. And before we get into the meat of it, Attorney Bungert, can you just clarify the ordinance numbers that are associated with
Yes.
items?
Yes. So the our numbering was incorrect on the ordinances. So just wanted to clarify for the record that what the correct general ordinance numbers are that are going to be in front of you at the ordinance first reading level. So that up right now. So the temporary expansion of licensed premise ordinance is actually general ordinance 42-20. And the face coverings ordinance is general ordinance 41-20. The premise expansion license or license premises expansion ordinance was approved at committee level at protection policy, and the face coverings ordinance is up for you for your consideration as a committee of the whole. And both of those are up for first reading and final adoption. So again, that's General Ordinance 42-20 for the premise expansion and General Ordinance 41-20 for face covering.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. So we are now on T2. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I move to approve. Second.
Motion made by Alder
Use the
Scannell,
board on that?
seconded by Alder Dorf. Any discussion? Alder Brunette.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make an amendment to under section 4 enforcement, line B, remove the line of the actual ordinance. I know we're voting to amend it to March 31st, but I'd like to remove line 4B, where it says a business violating this section may be subject to administrative action for any licenses they possess with this.
Second.
There's a motion and motion made by Alder Brunette, second, or amendment offered rather by Alder Brunette, seconded by Alder Weary. Is that right?
Yes.
Alder Brunette, you still have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Attorney Bumpgart, I corresponded with you, and I believe I made a request to have you send this to the whole council, but then I was just pulled it up, and I think you may have sent it just to the mayor. Did you send it to the entire council? Did the council receive this?
I did, excuse me. I did, but what I do, is I send it to the mayor and then blind copy all the council members, so as to avoid a walking quorum.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. It just caught my eye when I looked it up. So the reason I'd like to remove that, if you remember when this passed in July, kind of a contentious part of the ordinance as presented, given the fact that a lot of our businesses are struggling, I don't want to create another burden or worry for them, especially now. I think the ordinance as written it's an unfair application where some businesses have to worry about their license being taken away. Other businesses that don't have a city license, there's a different standard of enforcement for them. I shouldn't say a different standard, but different outcome of lack of enforcement to their customers. So that's my motion. That's my explanation.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Johnson on the amendment.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. I wholeheartedly support this. This was one of the amendments I made during the original discussion because I had some concerns about the equity of it, meaning that some businesses were subject to this while others were not. And I think it should be an all or nothing approach. But of course, at the city level, we can't have an all or nothing approach because not everybody needs to apply for any type of or some type of municipal license. And I think the easy response to that is, some folks will say, well, if we don't have any teeth, we don't have anything to enforce. But folks, the state has a mandate, the face mask mandate in place right now, and they don't have this provision, and it's just fine. So I think if we can remove the inequity of this component, I'm definitely one step close amendment. I do have another one that I'm going to offer up after we take action on this one, but I think it's an important component that we remove to make this fair for everybody. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Scannell.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I don't support the amendment. I think if you are getting a license from the city, you should be masking up. And if you're not masking up and staff is going to be working with you on that issue and you're still non-compliant, there should be consequences. That we can't put consequences on other businesses if they exhibit the same behavior is unfortunate. But there's nothing we can do about that. We have to work with what's within our power. And I don't have to mention, there's a big pushback against face masks. And I think I wish we could be a little more firmer in enforcing this. I think people who are against it are very bold, and they're allowed to be bold, and there's no consequences. We keep stripping away consequence after consequence after consequence. This is something within our power. We can issue a consequence if we deem to go that way. It's not automatic. We're going to work with people first. But if they are entrenched in being anti-mask, I fully believe we should put them through the process of not getting their license, perhaps. Start that process and see where we go with it. So I do not support this amendment.
Thanks, Alder. Any additional comments on the amendment?
Can we use the board, Mayor?
Absolutely, we will use the board.
Mr. Mayor, this is for removing that one section, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask exactly what words? I have it up here. What, or not to you, but
yeah, Attorney Bungert, if you could.
Which words are we going to remove?
Attorney Bungert, if you have.
You're muted.
Attorney Bungert, if you have the language.
Yep.
Yeah, it's.
I do. 1 second. So it is section 8.17 of our ordinances, and it is subsection 4, subsection B. Any business violating this section may be subject to administrative action for any licenses they possess with the city. So my understanding is subsection A still stands, which allows, subsection A allows any individual who fails to comply with this section shall be asked to leave by any authorized representative of the business or organization. If the individual refuses to leave or continues to refuse to comply, the individual may be subject to a municipal forfeiture in the amount of $10. So it's just taking away the administrative action for licenses if they do not follow the face coverings requirements.
Thank you.
Mayor, could you reset the board, please? I think I voted early.
I never even got it. Okay.
Can I please ask?
I did.
Alder Gerlach, did you have a question before we go to the board?
Please, I just want to make sure I understand. If I vote yes, I am voting to remove that administrative action. If I vote no, I am voting to keep that in. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe just a question for Attorney Bungert before we get to the vote. From my perspective, we haven't had any referrals for a license revocation, and the law department has not pursued any revocations. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no other comments or questions, we will use the board on the amendment. So that is a tie vote of 6-6. In the spirit of compromise, I will support the amendment, recognizing the fact that we haven't had to go this route. I don't think it was ever our intention as an administration or as a city to have to go that route. I think most importantly, it would be best for our council to move forward in as united a fashion as possible, and sending the message that face coverings are an incredibly simple and easy tool in the fight against coronavirus. So noting that, I will support the amendment.
Alder Dorf wants to say something.
Alder Dorf.
Thank you. I have an amendment. I also, in the spirit of compromise, in the hopes that council can get together on this issue, I would like to move the date from the end of March to our second meeting in February to look at this again, that it would sunset, I think it's February 17th. is our second meeting in February. And I'm not saying that that's when we'll stop having masks, but I am saying I'd like this portion of it to sunset on February 17th, so we can look at it again on that date.
Second.
Motion's been made, or an amendment has been offered rather by Alder Dorf to change the date on which the ordinance would expire from March 31st to February 17th, is it?
Yes. I think, I do think masks are incredibly important. I think they are saving lives. I'm horrified that the wearing of masks has been so politicized. And I am offering this amendment in the spirit of cooperation to those members of council that struggle with the idea of masks, in the hopes that we can come together as a council and support this. So I hope you will all take that in that spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. We have that amendment and a second by Alder Lefebvre. Comments on the amendment or questions?
Can we do a board?
Mayor, I have a comment.
Alder Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you. If I could just get a point of order from Attorney Bunger, can we amend it? Can we offer an amendment to an amendment?
It's not an amendment to an amendment, it's just an additional amendment. So the first amendment was presented and voted on and approved. And now there's a secondary amendment that's being made. It's not amending the first amendment, it's an additional amendment that's being voted on separately.
But I want to offer to amend Alder Dorf's amendment. I'm looking to see if that's allowable.
Well, why don't you just,
I'll make the comment, and then Attorney Bunger, you think about that while I'm speaking.
Yeah, that might be simplest.
So last time that we took this issue up, one of my major concerns, it wasn't that I was anti-mask. In fact, I was wearing masks before they were mandated. But part of the discussion was about proper jurisdiction. And right now, the state has a mandate in place, governor order that's in place until January 19th, which very coincidentally is the date of our next city council meeting. And so the state order supersedes the city ordinance, correct? In which case, the amendment that I was going to offer was actually to do it through January 19th, because then that would allow us the opportunity to take it up at the January 19th council meeting. If one of two things happens, one is the governor's order expires and he does not renew it, or the president-elect, he has indicated that he may provide a national mask mandate. And so it would give us the opportunity as well to see if that were to take place. Although I have to think back to when inauguration date is. I'm not sure when that is, but so anyway.
The 20th.
The 20th. Okay, so we'd have to take action on before the 20th. But January 19th was the date that I wanted to offer, which is why I was inquiring if I could offer that amendment to the amendment, because I hate to see the council take up the debate on this when in fact there is a superseding order that trumps what we do anyway.
So just a point of clarification, a slight one, but the governor's order is through January 21, not 19. Right.
Oh, okay. I was on this page today, so maybe I was looking at a different order. I don't know. But either way, it would still allow us the opportunity to take action. We would probably know more by that time if he's going to extend it, if he has the ability to.
Mm-hmm.
Can I offer a further compromise to Alder Johnson's amendment?
Alder Dorf, go ahead.
Alder Johnson, will you meet me in the middle and go with February 2nd, our first meeting in February, just to get through the 21st, the 20th, whenever this all is happening, go to February 2nd?
I like compromise, sure.
All right, I would like, can I make a friendly amendment to my amendment?
I think you just withdraw your amendment, Alder.
All right, I'll withdraw my amendment and make a new amendment. My new amendment is that we allow this to continue through February 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Johnson?
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
Any further discussion on that amendment?
Question for the police chief, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chief Smith, has the police department had any enforcement issues with the ordinance as it stands?
We've been keeping track of it. We've had a bunch of complaints, but we've not done any enforcement ourselves. We refer the complaints to the health department. And my recollection, there was about 48 of them since the beginning of the summer. Most of the times our officers will go to a location and just explain to people what the situation is, and we get voluntary compliance.
How about the last, say, 2 months? Any issues there? Has the society, has public just kind of come accustomed to it by now? I mean, most businesses require it, and I think we've had a lot of voluntary compliance.
I think we do have a lot of voluntary compliance. I talked to the front desk people who take those calls a lot. They said they've been getting very, very few of those calls recently.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Sir.
Mayor?
Alder Galvin, go ahead.
I guess that last question stirred up something in the back of my head. My understanding is that no action with any of these complaints from the police department. My understanding is the health department hasn't been doing any contact tracing or anything else related to this. My experience, there's a social media site for businesses that are adhering to the COVID restrictions of masking and that for this area around Green Bay. And if you go through that, you'll see quite a few that are complying and quite a few that aren't. Many of them are in the city of Green Bay. I think you could go to, there's a certain gas station chain in the city of Green Bay. If you go in there, you will not see any employees nor any of their customers wearing masks. So I guess I'm wondering just how effective turning these complaints into the health department has been, how effective they're really being. And I guess that's my concern going, we start to water down this ordinance. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments on the amendment? Seeing none. Alder Vanderleest, did you ask for a board vote on this amendment?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So all in favor of the amendment will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The amendment is successful. Further comments on the item as amended?
You need another motion to approve it as amended?
Correct.
I move to approve as amended.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Gerlach to approve this item as amended. Any further comments?
I do have one.
Alder Weary, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's all about choice. I think you put information out there. You allow businesses and you allow people to make their own informed choice. So I will be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Seeing no other comments, we will use the board. And that item is successful 10-2, which means that it meets the 2/3 threshold requirement to go into effect on first reading. So that will be in force at the end of the year. On to T3. Consideration with possible action for the city to not renew the flexible spending account agreement with Total Administrative Services Corporation and enter into an agreement with Employee Benefits Corporation to administer the city's flexible spending account effective January 1, 2021. On that, we will go to Director Falls to give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, sure. That item was kind of a mouthful there. Sorry, Mayor, for that. So you do have the memo and the cost analysis in your packet, so I'm not going to rehash all of that, but if you have any questions, please let me know. I did talk to the finance department today, and before we make any decisions, I want to make sure the finance department's on board to make sure that our process is aligned with what EBC's process is. So I'd like to propose an amendment to this. The amendment would be consideration of possible action to permit staff to enter into an agreement with either Total Administrative Services Corporation or Employee Benefits Corporation to administer the city's flexible spending account effective January 1st, 2021. that would just give staff the opportunity to vet EBC a little bit more and make sure we're making the right decision if we do go away from task.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Any questions for Director Faulds?
I'll make
Can I
that.
move to approve?
Alder Scannell, I think, is making an amendment.
Yep, I'll make the amendment. I move to amend as suggested by our personnel director.
Second.
Seconded by Alder Dorf. Any discussion on the amendment?
Mayor.
Yeah, Alder Johnson.
Thank you. Director Faulds, could you just touch on, I mean, you know, oftentimes when you make these types of transitions, right, there's hiccups. And obviously the second option that we're looking at is more expensive. I think 13,000 roughly estimated. You know, so could you just speak to that? And I know you documented the hiccups, right? But I mean, are these things that are just happening because it's such a new transition, or do you see these things happening in perpetuity? And then secondly, if you could also answer the added cost for that, where is that going to come from?
Yes, I think those are great questions. So yeah, we're not making this decision lightly. So I actually spoke with M3 earlier this year about task. And they told me that every client they've had has had an issue with the transition. And the clients that they've had that actually have transitioned are continuing to have the same problems with them. And really right now at this point, it's, you know, I don't want to be too blunt or, you know, but our employees, I mean, almost every single thing we've gone through right now has gone wrong at this point. And our employees have really lost a lot of confidence in the customer service, and I don't blame them. Having 2-hour long waits, having issues where they're describing our policies and our procedures that are in the wrong manner or just incorrect. It's been difficult for them. And it's been a pretty big burden on our staff and HR as well. So yeah, this isn't a decision we take lightly, and we do feel like the customer service is not going to improve. That's why we're really taking a hard look at it. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second question again?
So we're looking at an added cost of roughly 13,000. Where's the source of that?
Yep, that's so with this past summer, with all the changes that we made, we didn't really feel comfortable coming forward to the council saying, let's change our vendor on top of all the other changes we're going to have, and also have an added cost. I think it's closer to about 10,000. We didn't feel comfortable doing that. So now when we look at the numbers with the family savings plan, those projections are better than what we anticipated, and hopefully those savings we projected are better as well. So we do feel comfortable excuse me, that $10,000 can be absorbed through that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Further comments or questions? Alder Dorf.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I work with EBC for more than 12 years, probably 15 years. The school district had it fabulous, no problems, always had growth. So I had great experience with them, as did many of the employees that I worked with. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Alder. Alder Galp.
Thank you, Your Honor. And as a person who is using the city insurance yet, my experience with this transfer has not been good. I mean, I've gone through quite a few transfers over the years when we would go to different companies and handlers and that. I will say that and Joe, you can pass this information on. I believe it's Jill Christensen I've been working with. She's been phenomenal, and I actually feel sorry for her, because every time I call her, this company has changed things on her, and I believe probably made her life a living hell over the last couple of months. So I support this changeover. Thank you.
Yes, she's done a great job, and there's been a lot of changes, and we have one benefit specialist. So you can imagine if we have all these issues with one vendor, she has to answer those questions and then also answer all the questions that we have for all the other benefits. So I will pass that along. I do appreciate you saying that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alder. Any other comments on the amendment? Seeing none, we have a motion for the amendment and a second. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Motion to approve is amended.
Second.
Motion made to approve the item as amended, seconded, that was made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Gerlach. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. On to ordinances first and final reading for adoption.
Motion to approve number 1.
Mayor, before we move on, this will need a motion to suspend the rules for both to allow for council to adopt both at first reading, and that will require a 2/3 majority.
Very good. So I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules on item U1.
So moved.
Suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Johnson, seconded by Alder Scannell. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stevens to approve the item. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the item is approved. On to U2.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Johnson. All in favor will signify.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want to speak when we vote on this, Mayor.
Okay. All in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
No.
The ayes have it, and that motion to suspend is successful.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf. Alder Brunette, you.
This is item 2, correct? The face coverings?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I'm in support. I'm still on the fence, but I'm in support. I think what I'm comfortable with is that the state of emergency has been lifted. So therefore, the ordinance had to be adjusted a little bit because it was set to expire with the state of emergency. So although I'm conflicted because I tend to have some libertarian leanings, I understand the necessity to maybe extend the face covering ordinance a little bit. I'm also very happy to see that the one thing that I was most adamant against, and that is penalizing businesses who possess a license with the city, was removed, and the mayor broke the tie, which I like. So this is why I'm in favor of it. I'm still conflicted, but I think it was a fair comprehending government. Sometimes we have to compromise. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Alder. Thank you. Additional comments?
We use the board on number 2?
Yes, we can. A request for roll call has been made, and we'll use the board on the vote.
Alder Galvin, it's not showing up for you.
Yeah, you're right. It's not showing up here at all.
Fifth to vote.
And vote verbally, Alder?
Oh, wait. It just got. All right, do you have it? Otherwise, if you don't have it, I'll vote yay.
And again, that vote is 10-2. So with that, we are on to ordinances first reading. Entertain a motion to advance item 1 to a second and final reading.
Motion to advance.
Second.
Motion made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and this item has been advanced, or this ordinance has been advanced to final adoption. Petitions and communications.
Mayor?
Alder Lefebvre, go ahead.
Yes. Let's see. And I have to send it in. Okay, I believe this would be for finance. I'm asking the fair election grant with financial breakdowns where it was spent.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other communications? Seeing none, entertain a motion.
Motion to refer.
Motion has
Second.
for all petitions and communications to the proper authority. It's been made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Stoyer. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Petitions and communications have been referred. Adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn made by Alder Scannell, seconded by Alder Dorf. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Merry
Christmas.
Happy
Merry
New Year.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Take care.